Sofia Bellini was on her knees beside the radio console when the security room doors burst open. Blood darkened the side of her ivory blouse. 3 monitors showed the same empty hotel corridor, and Marco DeLuca's rival was gone. "Play it," Marco said. Julian Cross, the family's legal advisor, touched the console. Sofia's recorded voice filled the room. "Open the south service gate. The rival must stay alive, even if Marco doesn't." Silence followed. Around them, 6 armed men stared at Sofia. 2 of their friends had died at the hotel, along with one of Lorenzo Vescari's guards. On the largest screen, the timestamp showed that Sofia had sent the order 4 minutes before Vescari escaped. Marco stopped an arm's length from her. He wore the black suit he had chosen for the Peace Council at dawn, but there was blood on one cuff that wasn't his. "Tell me that isn't your voice." Sofia pressed one hand against her ribs. "It is." The admission moved through the room like a blade. Marco's expression didn't change, which frightened her more than anger would have. For 3 years, she had translated threats, contracts, and whispered insults before they could become wars. He had once told her that her voice was the only one he trusted when everyone else wanted blood. She had believed him. "The recording is cut," Sofia said. There were 2 more seconds. Julian removed a small black drive from the console. "The system shows the file ended under her credential. Someone used my booth access." "Your print opened the booth," Julian replied. "Your pass unlocked the radio. Your voice ordered the gate opened." Marco looked down at her. Why did Vescari need to live? Because he heard it too. Heard what? Sofia forced herself upright, though the room tilted. "A kill order. The voice after mine named you as the target." One of the guards gave a bitter laugh. Marco silenced him with a glance. "Whose voice?" Marco asked. "I don't know who gave him the order, but I know the man who spoke it. I heard him at the Trieste shipping mediation last winter." Julian's gaze sharpened. "A meeting with 17 foreign delegates. And no DeLuca soldiers," Sofia said. "That matters." Marco stepped closer. For one dangerous second, concern broke through his control. His eyes dropped to the blood at her waist. His hand almost reached for her, then closed instead. "You could have come to me. Your security channel was carrying the same voice. I tried the private line. It routed back here. So you warned my enemy. I kept the only other witness alive." Julian placed a tablet on the desk. "The council convenes at 5. If Marco doesn't surrender her before the vote, Vescari's family will call this an act of war. The port agreement dies with the ceasefire." Sofia watched Marco read the casualty report. She knew the exact moment grief defeated doubt. His father had died after a trusted translator leaked a route 12 years earlier. Sofia had spent 3 years proving that voices could prevent violence. One recording had turned her into the memory he feared most. Marco removed the pearl gray earpiece from her collar. He had ordered it custom-made after learning that an old injury made crowded rooms painful for her. The tenderness of that memory made what followed worse. "Your access is revoked," he said. "You'll remain in custody until the council hears the recording. Marco, if they take you to Bellwether Hall at dawn, you won't leave it alive." His face hardened at the use of his first name, Captain Ferry. "Take her to the East Holding Suite. No one speaks to her without me." Ferry caught Sofia before her knees failed. He supported her injured side instead of twisting her arms, a small mercy ordered by the man who no longer believed her. As the elevator doors closed, Sofia saw Julian hand Marco the black drive. Then the elevator ignored Ferry's key, passed the holding suite floor, and began descending toward the sealed basement. The elevator gathered speed. Captain Ferry stabbed his key into the control panel. Nothing changed. The numbers dropped past the basement level used by the household staff and continued toward a floor Sofia had never seen. "Someone has command access," Ferry said. The intercom clicked. A man's voice came through, flattened by static. "Captain, restrain the woman and surrender your weapon. Don DeLuca's order." Ferry reached for Sofia's wrists. "Wait." She leaned toward the speaker, fighting the pain in her side. That message was assembled. "What?" 3 recordings. Listen to the spaces between the words. The order played again. Sofia heard the clipped breath after captain, the warmer room tone beneath restrained the woman, and the faint Italian vowel Marco suppressed whenever he spoke English. Someone had taken pieces of his prior commands and built a new one. Marco never calls me the woman when he gives an operational order, she added. He uses surnames so nobody can claim confusion. Ferry studied her for half a second, then drew his pistol away from her and fired into the control panel. The elevator kept falling. He tore open the emergency cabinet and pulled the manual brake. Metal screamed above them. Sofia hit the wall, protecting her injured side too late. The car stopped hard enough to throw Ferry to one knee. "Can you climb?" he asked. "If the other choice is the bottom." Ferry forced the ceiling hatch open, locked his arms, and lifted her. He warned her before each movement and let her choose where he touched. She dragged herself onto the roof, then held the flashlight while he climbed after her. The elevator had stopped between floors. Ferry opened a maintenance gate with a mechanical release and led her onto a concrete landing. "You believed me," Sofia said. "I believed what I heard." He looked at the blood spreading beneath her hand. "That isn't the same as believing everything." It was more fairness than Marco had given her. They took the service stairs up one level. Sofia counted the turns and listened. The building's ventilation system carried voices from the security offices above. Most people heard only noise through stone and metal. She heard rhythm, stress, and origin. One man spoke in Serbian-accented Italian. The interpreter didn't reach the room. A second voice answered too softly for words, but Sofia recognized the cadence. Slow, educated, never wasting a syllable. She had heard it during private port briefings, always from someone seated close to Marco. Ferry touched her shoulder. She had stopped breathing. "What is it?" "They were waiting for the elevator," she whispered. "This wasn't meant to move me. It was meant to erase me." Upstairs, Marco stood at the center of the council chamber, while Julian placed a fresh treaty copy on the table. "We need another interpreter," Julian said. "The Vascari delegation arrives in 40 minutes. Marco looked automatically toward the chair on his right, Sofia's chair. A sharpened pencil lay beside the water glass she always replaced before meetings because he forgot to drink when negotiations turned hostile. Julian had brought a young interpreter from the corporate office. The man began translating a message from Vascari's attorneys, calling the proposed port provision a transfer of ownership. "No," Marco said. The interpreter went pale. "Sir?" Marco opened Sofia's briefing folder. Her notes separated ownership from temporary inspection authority, a distinction she had forced both families to state aloud 3 times. Without it, the council could surrender the port while believing it had approved a security arrangement. Sofia had prevented that mistake before anyone knew it existed. His fingers closed around her pearl gray earpiece. He remembered how she tapped it twice whenever a speaker lied, but the literal words remained technically true. During the past year, he had begun watching her hand before he watched the men across the table. Julian noticed. Competence doesn't erase betrayal. Neither does betrayal erase facts. Marco turned to Captain Ferry's location on the security screen. The signal showed the East holding suite. "Bring Sofia to the medical room," he ordered. "I question her alone before the vote." Julian's mouth tightened. "The families expect custody. They'll get custody. They don't get a wounded woman delivered without treatment." Marco opened the live camera from the holding suite. The screen showed Sofia sitting motionless in a chair, her head bowed. Then the same 6-second movement repeated. Her hand rose, her head lowered. Her hand rose again. The feed was a loop. Marco called Ferry. The captain answered on the second ring, breathing hard. "Where are you?" "North Service Stairs." "The elevator was overridden, and someone built a false order from recordings of your voice." Marco looked at the frozen image of Sofia. Ferry lowered his voice. "We heard one of them through the ventilation shaft. Whoever planned this is still inside the house." Marco locked the council chamber and ordered every exit sealed. "Use guards who weren't assigned through the legal office," Ferry warned over the phone. "We don't know whose credentials redirected the elevator." Marco chose 4 men himself and met Ferry at the north stairwell. Sofia stood against the railing, one arm wrapped around her waist. Her dark hair had come loose, and the blood on her blouse had reached the top of her skirt. He moved toward her. "Don't touch me," she said. Marco stopped. The refusal struck harder because she had never flinched from him before. "Medical room," he ordered. "Translation booth first. You're bleeding. And the only record that might keep you alive is 10 yards away." Marco looked at Ferry. The captain nodded once. Marco changed direction without argument. The booth door stood open. Its lock had been drilled from the inside, making it appear that Sofia had forced her way out. Her paper notebook was gone, but the headset remained beneath the desk where she had dropped it during the attack. Sofia pointed without entering. "Have Ferry collect it. If my prints are the only ones found, Julian will call it mine." Marco gave the order. For the first time that night, he followed her judgment in front of another man. In the medical room, Dr. Amato cleaned the wound. The blade had cut along Sofia's ribs without entering her abdomen, but she needed stitches and could barely lift her left arm. Marco remained by the door while Ferry sealed the recovered headset in an evidence pouch. "Start with the voice," Marco said. Sofia watched the doctor thread the needle. "I was interpreting Vescari's call with his shipping attorney. They were arguing about the port clause. The attorney believed temporary inspection authority would end after 90 days. That is what the agreement says. In Italian. The Serbian working copy uses a phrase that can also mean physical custody. I marked it for review yesterday. Marco remembered the correction in her briefing folder. The call ended. Sofia continued, but Vescari didn't disconnect. "I heard another man enter his room. He said, in Serbian, 'Keep the witness breathing until bellwether.' DeLuca closes his eyes before the seal touches paper." Dr. Amato paused. Marco's face became still. "You're certain?" "I interpreted that man for 14 hours at the Trieste mediation. Native Serbian speakers usually place the stress at the front of the word he used for witness. He shifts it to the second syllable. He learned the formal vocabulary outside Serbia. A voice habit," Ferry said. "A consistent one, but recognition isn't proof, so I tested it. I requested the archived Trieste audio from Naomi Reed, the conference custodian. Then I called Marco's private line. It never rang," Marco said. "It routed me back to the security console. The kill order voice was already on that channel. I couldn't send the audio without putting it through whoever controlled the system." Marco's eyes dropped to her wound. "So you opened Vescari's gate." "I told him to stay alive. I needed the other person who heard the order. Before I could reach Ferry directly, someone entered the booth." She looked toward the headset in the clear pouch. "The attacker cut me when I held onto it. I struck him with the console lamp and reached the alarm. He took my notebook and the original recording, but he left the headset because he thought it was only for sound." Ferry turned the pouch over. A narrow local memory port sat beneath the padded band. "It keeps the previous 30 seconds, Sofia said. "Not as an official record. It helps interpreters replay names they couldn't ask a hostile speaker to repeat." Marco felt the first clean break in the case against her. If the missing words remained there, the black drive Julian held was incomplete. Ferry connected the headset to an isolated recorder. A progress bar appeared, reached 12%, then stopped. "The memory is damaged," he said. "I can copy it, but I can't rebuild the audio." "Naomi can," Sofia said. "She designed the interpreter system in Trieste. This is her field, not mine." Marco handed Ferry a clean device. "Copy everything. The original stays sealed." The medical room door opened. Julian stood outside with 2 council witnesses. "The Vescari delegation received another message," he said. It came from Sofia's interpreter account. He displayed the text on his tablet. "Marco DeLuca will kill Lorenzo Vescari at Bellwether Hall. Do not let him sign." Sofia stared at the time stamp. The message had been sent 6 minutes earlier, while Dr. Amato was stitching her wound and Marco was watching. "That proves someone has her credentials," Ferry said. "Or proves she scheduled it," Julian replied. One of the witnesses avoided Sofia's eyes. "The council has moved the hearing to Bellwether Hall. Both families are already leaving." Marco looked at the threatening message, then at the woman he had accused. Julian lowered the tablet. You have 20 minutes to surrender her, or the council signs the port agreement without you. Marco took Sofia to Bellwether Hall. Refusing to appear would allow both families to approve the port agreement without him. Going meant entering the building named in the kill order. He chose 4 guards personally, kept Ferry beside Sofia, and carried the damaged headset himself. During the drive, Sofia sat across from him with a clean bandage beneath a borrowed black coat. I'm not asking you to believe me, she said. Don't sit beneath the West Gallery, and don't touch the council seal. Why the seal? The Serbian order said you would close your eyes before it touched paper. That might be a deadline, or it might be literal. Marco searched her face. You still don't know. No, I'm telling you what I know and what I don't. That honesty should have separated her from the people who always offered certainty. Instead, it reminded him that trusting her required risking every person waiting at Bellwether. The hall had once been a courthouse. Both mafia families now filled its dark wooden benches. Lorenzo Viscari's chair stood empty, but his attorney sat beneath the family crest. Julian took his place at the central table as council secretary. Sofia was made to stand where witnesses once testified. Julian played her warning to Viscari. Then he displayed the second message sent from her account. Dr. Amato confirmed that Sofia had been receiving stitches when it left the system. A scheduled message, Viscari's attorney said. It proves nothing. Ferry placed the sealed headset on the table. This may contain the missing end of the recording. May? Asked an elderly DeLuca councilman. The memory is damaged. It requires an independent specialist. Julian rose with a paper notebook in his hand. Sofia recognized the worn blue cover immediately. This was found beneath the rear seat of Lorenzo Viscari's escape car, Julian said. He opened it to a sketch of Bellwether Hall. Sofia's handwriting labeled the West Gallery, Marco's chair, the signing table, and the service exits. On the next page were the Serbian words she had heard through the open line. Keep the witness breathing. DeLuca closes his eyes. The seal touches paper. The room erupted. That notebook was taken from my booth, Sofia said. Julian faced her. The same booth you claim someone entered without appearing on camera? The camera feed was already compromised. And the notebook happened to travel from your locked office into the rival's car? Sofia looked at Marco. I drew that room because interpreting teams receive seating plans. I wrote those words because I heard them. Someone stripped away where they came from, just as they cut the recording. Viscari's attorney activated a voice message from his client. Lorenzo sounded weak and breathless. Sofia Bellini told me Marco DeLuca had been marked for death. She opened the gate and ordered me to run. She said I had to remain alive, even if DeLuca did not. Every word was true. Without the kill order that followed, every word condemned her. The council invoked its oldest rule. Marco could surrender Sofia to neutral custody before the signing, or lose the DeLuca vote and accept responsibility if war resumed. The headset gives us reason to wait, Ferry argued. A broken device gives us an excuse, Julian replied. Marco remembered his father's body arriving home beneath a white sheet. A trusted interpreter had provided the route that killed him. Now 3 men were dead, Viscari had escaped, and Sofia's genuine notebook had been found in the rival's car. He rose. Sofia Bellini no longer speaks for me or the DeLuca family. The sentence struck the exact wound he had once promised he would never touch. Sofia had spent her life being treated as a useful voice without a place at anyone's table. Marco had given her that place, then taken it away before the same people who had resented her. He continued. She will be transferred to St. Orsini Clinic under neutral council guard until the recording is examined. Sofia held his gaze. You trusted my voice only when it said what you already wanted to hear. Marco couldn't answer. He surrendered his council chair until the hearing ended, the price required to keep Viscari's family from taking custody of her. It cost him control of the port vote, but Sofia saw only the public rejection. Ferry escorted her through the side exit. Council rules required the secretary to record the clinic route before any neutral transfer. Julian entered the Northern Tunnel Road in the official ledger and sealed the page. 10 minutes later, Ferry's vehicle entered that tunnel. Steel barriers dropped behind them. A delivery truck blocked the road ahead. The guard in the passenger seat reached for his radio, but the signal had already died. Ferry turned towards Sofia. "Get down." The side window shattered. Ferry fell across the steering wheel, and masked men tore open Sofia's door. As they dragged her into the darkness, one of them spoke in Serbian. The interpreter reached the wrong room after all. Marco reached the northern tunnel 9 minutes after the attack. The council vehicle sat against the wall with both doors open. Ferry was alive, though a bullet had torn through his shoulder. The neutral guard beside him had stopped breathing. Sofia was gone. Marco knelt beside Ferry while Dr. Amato's emergency team worked. They spoke Serbian, Ferry said through clenched teeth. The same accent we heard in the house. How did they know the route? Ferry's eyes moved toward Bellwether Hall. The secretary's ledger. Marco had placed Sofia into neutral custody because he believed council procedure would protect her. Instead, his decision had delivered her location to the people trying to silence her. He returned to Bellwether with blood on his hands. The port agreement had already been signed. Because Marco had surrendered his chair, temporary inspection authority passed to an interim security committee. Julian would administer the committee until the council hearing ended. The transfer didn't give him ownership of the port, but it gave his office control of vehicles, guard assignments, and cargo inspections. Exactly the systems used in Sofia's abduction. Marco went first to the witness stand where she had faced him. Her empty place seemed larger than the crowded hall. The words she had spoken before leaving returned with unbearable precision. "Don't touch the council seal." Marco ordered Ferry's deputy to open its silver handle. Inside, hidden beneath the family crest, was a spring-loaded needle coated with clear residue. Dr. Amato sealed it for testing. Sofia hadn't known the method. She had known enough to keep Marco from touching it. The first certainty he had used against her began to collapse. Ferry had protected the clean copy made from her headset by placing it inside his armored vest. The device was cracked during the tunnel attack, but its data remained readable. Marco played the damaged fragment through an isolated speaker. Sofia's voice came first. "The rival must stay alive, even if Marco doesn't." Static swallowed the next second. Then a man's voice emerged beneath the damage. DeLuca closes his. The fragment ended. It didn't identify the speaker or prove Sofia innocent. It did prove that her recording had continued after the words Julian presented to the council. Marco remembered what she had done in the medical room. She had pointed out the headset, demanded that Ferry collect it, and insisted the original remain sealed. A traitor controlling the evidence would have destroyed it. Sofia had created a chain another person could examine, even when she knew the result might not save her. He closed his hand around the pearl gray earpiece in his pocket. The device had once meant he cared enough to hear the world as she heard it. Now it reminded him that he had taken away her voice before asking who had cut it. Julian entered with 2 council guards. The committee requires the headset and every copy. For what purpose? To determine whether Sofia manufactured the missing phrase. The original stays with Ferry. Julian's expression remained polite. "You no longer hold a council chair. Refusal will be treated as obstruction. Then obstructed is what you'll be." By noon, the committee froze Marco's authority over port security and removed his remaining representatives from the inspection offices. He lost access to the system his family had controlled for 18 years. He paid the price without changing his answer. Naomi Reed responded from Trieste shortly afterward. She confirmed that she could recover the headset buffer if she received the sealed original. She also reported that someone from DeLuca Legal had requested the Trieste voice archive 3 days before the attack, using an emergency authorization attached to the port agreement. Only the council secretary could issue that authorization. Marco didn't confront Julian. Proof forced into the open too early could still be explained away. Instead, he told Julian that Naomi would receive the headset at the old customs house at 2 in the afternoon. The location appeared nowhere else. Marco then placed an empty evidence case inside the building and watched from a shuttered warehouse across the street. At 1:47, a gray van entered the port through a committee-controlled gate. Two men searched the customs house, found the empty case, and immediately called someone. They never noticed Marco recording the van's damaged rear panel. The scrape along its side matched blue paint recovered from Ferry's vehicle in the tunnel. Marco followed from 3 cars back. He changed vehicles once at a garage still controlled by Ferry's family, then continued without using the port tracking network. The van left the city and entered an abandoned glassworks beside the river. Its driver passed through a gate guarded by a man wearing the same contractor insignia used at the Trieste mediation. Marco watched through binoculars as a second-floor light came on. A broad female figure crossed the dirty window, moving carefully with one arm held against her injured ribs. Sofia was alive. Then another figure entered the room, and the light went out. The man who entered Sofia's room carried her blue notebook. She recognized his voice before he removed his mask. Milan Dravic had served as the Serbian security liaison at the Trieste mediation. He was the man whose unusual stress pattern she had remembered. He was also the voice that had issued Marco's kill order. "Where is the headset?" Dravic asked in Serbian. Sofia kept her injured arm against her ribs. A plastic restraint secured her other wrist to an iron pipe beneath the window. "Destroyed in the tunnel." Dravic smiled. Mr. Cross wouldn't have sent men to the customs house for something destroyed. Julian's name didn't surprise her. Hearing it directly still changed suspicion into knowledge. Dravic set the notebook on the table and answered his radio. The caller spoke too quietly for Sofia to identify, but Dravic's replies revealed enough. The interim committee had control of the port. At sunset, both families would ratify the Serbian working copy. Once signed, its custody clause would let Julian's committee hold the port indefinitely after any armed breach. Marco's death would have created that breach. Sofia's warning had kept Lorenzo Vescari alive and prevented the two families from blaming each other long enough to start a war. "You cut the wrong recording," Sofia said. Dravic glanced at her. "You left enough of the kill order in my headset. Then you'll tell me where it is. If I knew, you wouldn't need me alive." His smile disappeared. He left one guard outside and went downstairs to prepare the transfer. Sofia waited until his footsteps faded, then reached toward the broken window frame. During the hour she had been alone, she had worked a loose sliver of glass beneath the plastic around her wrist. The effort reopened 2 stitches, but the strip finally snapped. She didn't rush the door. Her left arm could barely support its own weight, and at least 4 men were below. Instead, she used the free end of the restraint to secure the inner handle to the radiator pipe. When the guard tried to enter, the door opened only 2 inches. He cursed and shoved harder. Sofia took Dravic's radio from the table and pressed the call button. "The interpreter is loose," she said in Serbian, copying the guard's regional accent. Boots pounded on the floor below. 2 men ran toward the rear stairs, believing the warning had come from outside the building. Sofia had not escaped, but she had divided them and bought herself time. The dirty window shattered inward. Marco climbed through the opening. Sofia snatched the metal base of the desk lamp and raised it with her good hand. "It's me," he said. "That doesn't make you safe." He froze on the sill. The words hurt, but he didn't challenge them. "May I come closer?" Sofia lowered the lamp only after he showed her both empty hands. He crossed the room and stopped beyond her reach. "Ferry is alive," he said. "The headset copy survived. Naomi confirmed she can recover it. You found the needle in the seal." It wasn't a question. Marco nodded. "You saved my life. And you destroyed mine in front of both families." "I did." No excuse followed. Sofia had expected him to blame the evidence, his father, or the council. His plain admission did not repair anything, but it kept her from turning away. The guard threw his weight against the door. The radiator pipe groaned. Marco drew his pistol. "Can you use this?" "No." He didn't press it into her hand or tell her that fear would teach her. He gave her a small door wedge instead. "Then tell me what you need." Dravic alive. He heard Julian's orders, and his voice is on the headset. Marco's first instinct showed in his face. He wanted the man who had cut Sofia and ordered his death to stop breathing. "Alive?" Sofia repeated. Marco nodded. The door tore free. The guard stumbled into the room, expecting resistance near the window. Sofia kicked the wedge beneath his leading foot. His balance broke, and Marco drove him against the wall without firing. Sofia took the guard's radio while Marco restrained him. "South stairs," she said. "Dravik sent 2 men to the rear after my false warning. The front hall should have one." "Should? I'm an interpreter, not a surveillance system." Marco accepted the limit. They moved through the south stairwell, Sofia setting the pace because of her wound. When voices approached from below, Marco started toward a side corridor. "No," she whispered. "They said the river exit is sealed. They expect us there." He followed her toward the furnace floor instead. The old factory machinery gave them cover. Marco's 2 loyal guards entered through the loading bay on the route he had assigned before climbing to Sofia's window. Their arrival pulled Dravik's men away from the office. Marco and Sofia reached the service door without being seen. Dravik escaped in the gray van, choosing the headset over a fight he could not control. Marco did not pursue. Sofia could barely remain standing, and he chose her life over revenge. Inside Marco's waiting car, he offered her the pearl gray earpiece. Sofia took it from his palm without letting him fasten it to her collar. "This doesn't mean I forgive you. I know. We work together until Julian and Dravik are exposed. You share every piece of information. You don't issue orders to me. And you don't use me as bait." Marco met her eyes, agreed. Sofia fitted the earpiece herself. Then Dravik's abandoned radio crackled with Julian's voice. "Move the signing to Bellwether, Sunset, and this time, make sure the interpreter never reaches the room." They went to a private clinic owned by Ferry's sister, not to any DeLuca property. Dr. Amato replaced Sofia's torn stitches and ordered her to remain seated. Marco obeyed the order as carefully as she did. He placed every item on the table between them: the sealed headset, the copied buffer, the poisoned council seal, Julian's archive authorization, and the recording captured from Dravik's radio. Nothing was hidden from her. Naomi Reed joined them through an encrypted video connection from Trieste. Ferry watched from his hospital room while Naomi worked on a verified copy of the headset data. The original remained sealed in Dr. Amato's custody. After 40 minutes, Naomi isolated the damaged words. Sofia's voice filled the clinic office. "The rival must stay alive, even if Marco doesn't, because DeLuca is the target." Then Milan Dravik spoke in the background. "DeLuca closes his eyes before the seal touches paper. Keep Viscari breathing until the families blame each other." Naomi compared the voice with the archived Trieste recording. The same stress pattern and vocal scar appeared in both. Marco looked at Sofia. "That clears you. It proves the recording shown to the council was cut," she said. "Julian will argue that Dravik and I were working together." She was right. The headset proved Dravik had ordered Marco's death. Julian's authorization proved his office had obtained Dravik's Trieste voice files 3 days earlier. The tunnel route and gray van connected committee-controlled security to Sofia's abduction. But none of it proved Julian had knowingly ordered the murder or altered the port agreement for himself. "We need him to act on something only the person behind Dravik would fear," Sofia said. Marco opened the Serbian working copy. Attached to it was a list of emergency security contracts. Dravik's company appeared beneath Julian's signature, but the digital copy showed the contract beginning that morning, after the committee received authority. Sofia read the date twice. "That company was already inside your estate last night." Then the original contract was signed earlier and changed before this copy was released. Council rules required every original authorization connected to the port agreement to remain inside a red session packet until final ratification. Julian, as secretary, held the only key that could open the evidence vault without a council vote. Using it required his signet and produced a permanent entry in the paper access book. He planned to exchange the original contract before sunset, Marco said. "Then we make him believe Dravik identified the packet on my headset." Marco studied her. He knows Dravik never said that. He knows what he ordered Dravik to say. He doesn't know what Dravik muttered after the attack or what the damaged buffer captured. Sofia asked Marco for Dravik's abandoned radio. Its network had gone silent, but the device still contained the same compromised contact list used by Julian's men. She recorded a message to Naomi and deliberately sent it through the least secure channel. The recovered audio mentions an original instruction sheet inside Bellwether's red session packet. Preserve that section separately. The statement was false. The packet was real. If Julian ignored the message, they would still challenge him with the headset, the archive authorization, and Lorenzo Vescari's testimony. If he entered the vault and removed the earlier contract, the access book and neutral clerk would place him with the document he claimed did not exist. No hidden tracker? Marco asked. He controls the port's technical systems. Assume he can find one. Then how do we prove what he takes? Sofia tapped the inventory page attached to the Serbian agreement. Every page in that packet was read aloud during the preliminary session. 2 court stenographers recorded the list. We need one of them to identify what disappears. Marco contacted Vescari's attorney through a number Sofia remembered from the negotiations. Lorenzo was injured but alive at a guarded medical suite across the city. He agreed to appear at Bellwether and repeat the kill order he had heard, provided Marco entered without DeLuca soldiers. I'll accept, Marco said. Sofia stopped him. We accept together. Your men remain outside, and Vescari's guards submit to the same rule. Marco let her set the terms. They arranged for the senior stenographer to wait with Dr. Amato beside the vault's paper access book. Naomi would testify remotely about the headset recovery. Ferry's deputy would preserve the original devices and contracts outside Julian's systems. If every camera failed, the stenographer could still identify the missing page. Dr. Amato could verify the seal's poison, and Vescari could repeat what he had heard. Marco wanted Sofia to remain at the clinic. You nearly died twice, he said, and you humiliated me in that hall. If the truth is spoken there, I decide how it is spoken. He lowered his head once. Then you control the order. Sofia changed into a dark green dress the clinic kept for family visitors. She could not hide the bandage or the stiffness in her left arm, and she refused to try. At 4:20, the stenographer sent a single coded message. Julian had entered Bellwether's evidence vault 2 hours before the scheduled signing. He had requested the red session packet. Julian was already holding the red session packet when Sofia entered Bellwether Hall. Both families turned toward her. Some looked shocked that she was alive. Others looked disappointed that a traitor had returned before they could condemn her in peace. Marco walked beside her, without touching her. He had honored the agreement and left his men outside. Lorenzo Vescari arrived through the opposite entrance with his attorney and 2 unarmed guards, completing a route arranged from his medical suite before sunset. Julian raised the packet. Marco DeLuca has brought an accused conspirator into a ratification session from which he is suspended. She has the right to answer evidence presented against her, Marco said. Not through your authority. Sofia stepped forward. Then let the evidence speak without either of us. Dr. Amato placed the poisoned counsel seal on the witness table. Ferry's deputy delivered the original headset and the verified copy through the neutral clerk. The senior stenographer opened the paper access book and showed Julian's signet beside the 4:20 entry. Julian didn't deny entering the vault. I inspected the packet after receiving a warning that Sofia intended to fabricate evidence inside it, he said. He played the message Sofia had deliberately sent through Dravik's compromised network. The recovered audio mentions an original instruction sheet inside Bellwether's red session packet. Whispers spread across the hall. Julian looked directly at Sofia. There is no such sentence on the headset recording. She lied to force me into the vault. I gave false information to the people monitoring Dravik's channel, Sofia said. Only someone connected to that channel would have heard it, or anyone to whom I was legally required to report a threat against counsel evidence. It was the rebuttal Sofia had expected. What she had not expected was the packet itself. The stenographer checked every listed page. Nothing was missing. Dravik's contract was present, dated after the interim committee received authority. Julian had exchanged the original packet for a prepared duplicate without removing a single inventoried item. The access entry proved he had opened the vault. It did not prove what he had changed. Naomi's video connection failed as soon as Julian ordered Bellwether's outside network closed for security. The neutral clerk confirmed that the shutdown was within the secretary's emergency authority. Naomi could no longer explain the recovery process to the council. Julian turned the failure into an advantage. We have an audio file repaired by Sofia's friend in another country, a poisoned object left unattended after the first hearing, and a known false message designed to manipulate this council. Lorenzo Vescari stood with visible effort. I heard Dravik give the kill order after Sofia warned me. Julian faced him. You also admit Sofia opened your gate. Why should this council assume she and Dravik weren't partners who later betrayed each other? Lorenzo had no answer that could prove Julian's role. The families wanted peace more than uncertainty. They voted to continue the signing. Under council rules, the Serbian working copy required an interpreter to confirm that its controlling clause matched the Italian version. Julian offered Sofia the task. Marco immediately objected. You stripped her credentials this morning, and she claims her competence is why we should believe her. Let her use it. The interpreter's booth sat beneath the west gallery, enclosed in soundproof glass. Sofia understood the trap. If she refused, Julian would call it fear of reading the document, she said. He had altered. If she entered, his security controlled the door and microphone. Marco looked at her, waiting instead of deciding. I go in, she said, but I keep my earpiece. Julian agreed because the custom device was registered only as an assistive receiver, not as the booth's official recorder. Inside the booth, Sofia received the Serbian agreement through a narrow slot. She read the custody clause aloud. The replacement interpreter at the council table delivered the Italian version. He changed one word. The Serbian text granted the committee custody of the port after any armed breach. The interpreter said control would end when the immediate threat ended. Julian nodded, as though the two meanings matched. Sofia tapped her pearl-gray earpiece twice. Across the hall, Marco saw the signal she had used for a year whenever someone spoke words that were technically polished and fundamentally false. Her microphone is off, he said. Julian continued arranging the signature pages. The booth system is unstable. The doors behind Marco locked. Committee guards moved into the aisles. Because both families had entered without weapons, Julian's security now held the only force inside Bellwether. Sofia tried the booth handle. It would not move. A side panel opened behind her, and Milan Dravik stepped out of the maintenance corridor. He wore a committee guard's uniform and kept one hand inside his coat. Stay quiet until the signing ends, he said in Serbian. Sofia backed toward the console, her injured side pressed against the desk. Julian plans to arrest me in front of both families. Cross plans to remove you before the signatures dry. Dravik touched his radio. The main network was down, so the committee guards had been forced onto the interpreter channel Julian's office had compromised earlier. The witness is contained, Dravik reported. Proceed. Julian's voice answered through Sofia's earpiece. Once I lift my pen, Bellini never leaves that booth. Sofia pressed the local memory switch beneath the Bellwether console. Interpreter booths preserved the previous 30 seconds locally so names could be replayed during hostile negotiations. At the signing table, Lorenzo Vescari signed first. Marco remained without a council vote, separated from Sofia by locked glass and armed guards. Julian placed the tip of his pen against the final signature line. Sofia tapped her earpiece twice again. Then she pointed beneath the console where Marco could see it. The local memory light was glowing. Before Julian's pen touched the paper, Sofia pressed the playback key. The booth's local recording poured through Bellwether's speakers. Dravik's voice came first. Cross plans to remove you before the signatures dry. Then Julian answered over the compromised channel. Once I lift my pen, Bellini never leaves that booth. Every face turned toward him. Julian set down the pen with deliberate calm. The words refer to lawful detention. Sofia remains accused of conspiracy, and Dravik is a contractor acting beyond his authority. Inside the booth, Dravik reached for the memory module beneath the console. Sofia struck the emergency archive switch first. The module dropped through the document slot into the neutral clerk's locked tray. Julian could no longer reach it without acting in front of both families. Dravik caught Sofia's injured arm. Pain tore across her ribs, but she planted her feet and pulled the interpreter's chair between them. He could drag her only by abandoning the module he had been ordered to destroy. "Play the original headset," Sofia called through the restored microphone. The neutral clerk connected the verified copy to an offline speaker. Her warning to Lorenzo filled the hall again, but this time it did not stop where Julian's version had ended. The rival must stay alive, even if Marco doesn't, because DeLuca is the target. Dravik's order followed. DeLuca closes his eyes before the seal touches paper. Keep Vescari breathing until the families blame each other. Lorenzo Vescari rose from his chair. "That is the voice I heard in my hotel room. Sofia warned me because she knew I was the only other witness." Julian's composure tightened, but he still had a defense. Dravik and Sofia could have planned the recording together. "Nothing in it proves I ordered the murder." "No," Sofia said. "Your contract proves when you gave Dravik access." Julian lifted the duplicate red packet. His contract began after the committee was formed. Sofia looked past him to the armed men in the aisles. "Then those guards have no valid authority here." The committee captain frowned. Sofia continued. "They entered Bellwether before the agreement was ratified. A contract dated this morning cannot authorize security that was inside Marco's estate last night, diverted my elevator, or attacked the northern tunnel. Julian needed the earlier authorization to keep those men under his command until this signature became effective." She faced the captain. "Council rules require you to inspect the original authorization before obeying a secretary without a sitting family chair. Ask him to produce it." The captain had served councils longer than Julian had. He held out his hand. For the first time, Julian hesitated. The guards began looking at one another. Without the original paper, they were armed contractors inside a closed session with no recognized authority from either family. Julian opened the inner pocket of his leather folio and removed a cream-colored page bearing his red signet. The senior stenographer stepped forward. "That is the document I read into the preliminary record. It authorizes Dravik's company 3 days before the interim committee existed." The duplicate packet displayed the same contract dated that morning. 2 versions, 1 signet, 1 man who had entered the evidence vault after Sofia's controlled warning. Julian tried one final explanation. The earlier date was an administrative error. Sofia pointed to the scope paragraph. "Read the 3rd line." He remained silent. She translated it herself. "Assume port custody upon the incapacitation of a family principal." The Italian copy called it a temporary inspection assignment after ratification. Julian had authorized the transfer before any emergency existed. The contract gave Dravik access before any security emergency existed. The interpreter recordings proved what he did with that access. Lorenzo's testimony confirmed the order was real and that Sofia's warning had preserved the only witness who could challenge it. The committee captain turned away from Julian. "Open the booth," he ordered. Dravik pulled a pistol, not to punish anyone, but to force a route through the maintenance corridor. The captain's men were already positioned at both ends of it. Dravik saw the blocked exits and lowered the weapon rather than die for a plan that had failed. The guards restrained him and released Sofia. She walked into the hall without Marco's assistance. Her left arm shook, and blood had begun seeping through the bandage again. But she returned to the same witness position where Julian had displayed her notebook. The council canceled the ratification, suspended Julian's authority, and restored control of the port to joint family custody pending an independent review. The duplicate packet and both recordings went into neutral custody. An elder asked Sofia what correction should be entered into the public council record. She looked at Marco, then at every person who had watched him reject her. "Write that I warned Lorenzo Vescari because I heard the order to kill Marco DeLuca," she said. "Write that the warning saved both men and prevented a war. And write that my truth was cut short because a complete sentence would have exposed the people in power." The stenographer recorded every word. This time, no one interrupted her. Marco stepped into the witness position after Sofia left it. Both families remained seated. He could have waited for a private room or allowed the counsel's correction to speak for him. Instead, he faced the same people who had watched him take away Sofia's name. "I accused Sofia Bellini of betraying me," he said. "I was wrong. She warned Lorenzo Vescari because she heard the order to kill me. She protected the witness, preserved the evidence, and prevented a war while I treated her loyalty as a crime." He did not mention his father or the evidence Julian had manipulated. "My decision placed her in the hands of the men trying to murder her. There is no excuse for that." Marco formally withdrew every accusation, restored the salary and benefits withheld during her dismissal, and placed additional compensation under Sofia's sole control. He announced that he would not reclaim his council chair until an independent review examined his conduct as well as Julian's. Sofia did not thank him. Dr. Amato took her back to the clinic, where she remained for 4 days. Ferry recovered with limited movement in his shoulder. Julian and Dravik were held under joint family authority, while the killings, forged contracts, abduction, and port conspiracy were referred to investigators through the legitimate shipping companies they had corrupted. The port agreement was voided. Neither family received sole control. A new neutral board required every multilingual contract and recording to be reviewed by independent interpreters who answered to neither side. Sofia declined Marco's offer to return. 6 weeks later, she opened Bellini Language Risk in a modest office overlooking the river. Lorenzo Vescari became her first client. The DeLuca companies applied through the same public process as everyone else, and Sofia wrote a clause allowing her to terminate their contract without penalty if anyone interfered with her work. Marco signed it without requesting a change. He came to her office after business hours, alone and without warning anyone to prepare the room for him. Sofia's wound had healed into a tender scar. She could lift her left arm again, though slowly. "I should have called," he said from the doorway. "Yes. May I come in?" Sofia considered him before nodding. Marco stopped on the opposite side of her desk. "I'm not here to ask you to forgive me." "Good. I'm here to apologize without asking for anything back. I believed that power made my judgment reliable. When fear spoke in my father's voice, I trusted it over the woman who had earned my trust every day for 3 years. I cannot undo what I did. I can only make sure I never use love, grief, or authority as permission to silence you again." Sofia looked down at the pearl gray earpiece beside her hand. It no longer belonged to the DeLuca communication system. Naomi had rebuilt it for Sofia's private network. "I don't know if I can love you without remembering Bellwether," she said. "You don't owe me the attempt." That answer mattered more than any declaration. Sofia stood and walked to the window. Marco waited where she had left him. "If we try," she said, "I remain independent. You don't choose my clients, assign my security, or turn concern into an order. We meet as Sofia and Marco, not interpreter and Don." "Agreed. And I decide the pace. Always." She turned toward him. "Then you may take me to dinner on Friday. One dinner is not forgiveness." A quiet warmth reached his face. One dinner. The following Friday, Marco arrived without guards and waited outside until Sofia opened the door herself. She fastened the pearl gray earpiece to her collar, not because she needed to speak for him, but because it now carried only the voices she chose to hear. Then Sofia locked her own office and walked beside him into the evening.